Poor Grandma has had her handbag snatched by a rapscallion while running errands this afternoon. Oh, won't you please help me find the one who did it? Yes, I will, Grandma. Oh, crap. Yeah, I go out when there's crime or whatever. So good. Okay, no more spoilers. A few weeks ago, in celebration of 100K subscribers, I hosted a game jam, and it got a whopping 52 submissions.
Woo! Yeah!
So at the end of the video, I'm gonna shout out a couple of my favorite submissions from the jam. Oh, and the theme was mismatched. That's probably important to mention. I worked on my submission with my sister Maeve and my good friend and buddy Tyler. Maeve was on art, I was on programming, and Tyler had school and work over the weekend. But despite that, he still ended up being a really massive help in getting this game done. Maeve stayed at my small studio apartment for the weekend, and it was 48 hours of being constantly hopped up on caffeine, sleeping in shifts, and having Tyler in and out of Discord calls to help with design work. Hello? So our original idea was a human in disguise on an alien planet, and the gameplay was going to be revolved around not knowing what the aliens' social customs were. So for example, maybe instead of shaking hands to meet, aliens punch each other in the gut. But this idea quickly became difficult to form a fun game loop without just being kind of a guessing game, and the more it evolved, the less it started to match the mismatch theme. So we scrapped it and went back to the drawing board, and we started by firing off ideas that involved a career that was mismatched with a character, like maybe a vampire that's also a doctor, or a penguin that has to do any job that requires finger articulation.
President Penguin, we are ready to launch the missiles. Please send your confirmation, and may God help us all.
But then Maeve came up with a great idea that combined the character customization of those Flash Barbie games with the career of being a police sketch artist. Tyler and I loved it instantly, so after some quick designing, we came up with this idea. You are a police sketch artist who has to listen to victims' descriptions of who crimed them, and then use the character customization sheet to draw the suspect. Then you have to take your drawing and pick which person is a criminal from a line of suspects. So before anything, we spent a few hours designing, starting with what would be the customizable options, and we came up with 12 categories: face shape, skin color, hair color, eyes, eye color, nose, mouth, facial hair, scars, piercings, and tattoos. Now that we had these, we played this fun game where we separately used all the customizable pieces and created a few unique criminals with them, and then came back together, revealed them to each other, and decided which ones we wanted to go with, which also was probably the fastest way to come up with 10 criminals. We also designed what the victims would look like and a little bit of their dialogue options before I got started on programming. If I had to guess, we probably spent about 5 to 6 hours total just designing before I even started any programming. So I wanted to do a very classic version of drawing on one letter at a time when they spoke, and I spent about an hour programming that in with drawing on characters with timers, even made sure that it worked where you could have multiple lines and go to the next line. But it turns out that Godot has a slider built in just for this purpose. I don't mind. I don't. You're subscribed to this guy? Mistakes like that are a regular occurrence during this project because I still don't know all the ins and outs of Godot. I'm still relatively new to it. This is only my third ever project I worked in Godot, the first being Living for Plants and the second being Squeezy Dudes. Oh, Shawcat, what's Squeezy Dudes? Thank you for asking. It's a Godot project I made in 24 hours, but then I just didn't make a video about it. I don't know. The title makes it seem more fun than it is. It's a crappy mobile ripoff. Maybe I'll make a video someday. While I finished up the dialogue, Maeve was cranking out the official drawings of the customization pieces and sending them over to me. When I gathered a good amount, I put together the customization sheet, and I always struggled a little bit with Godot's UI system at first, but I managed to pull the reins and get it together. Getting the drawings onto the notepad proved to be a whole nother challenge altogether. It doesn't seem too complicated. You click on the sprite you want, and you spawn the same one on the paper. But the real issue I was running into was the color. I was using hex codes, a way of representing colors in a format that computers can understand and display, which is what I usually do to represent color in code, but I was running into a ton of issues.
You're going to jail for tax evasion!
No! Coincidentally, I was having trouble programming with hex codes as well. When we clicked on a color, characters were turning either completely black or weird translucent shades of blue. I was doing research, and the first thing I came across was that you need to have certain characters before the hex codes in GDScript, but that still didn't fix it. I later came across this bug report that says all hex codes got offset, so the red values were becoming the green values were becoming the blue values, and the blue to the alpha to red. Was this what was happening to me? I don't know. So my first solution was to stupidly try to make a function that converted it back into a regular hex code, you know, making the alpha the green and the green the blue, you know. And after doing all this complicated stuff with it still not working, I just went back, combed through all my code, and switched out every instance of hex codes with just regular old color values. And that fixed it, right? Nope. You're subscribed to? So what was wrong? The colors in general were correct now, but when you select hair, it actually spawns two sprites, a hair front sprite and a hair back sprite, except not every hair had a hair back sprite. For example, we wanted to have bald as an option, and I said to Maeve, oh, wouldn't it be so funny if when you chose bald, the hair sprite was just a little bald spot shine? Ho ho ho, we chortled with rapturous glee, but the bald gods must have been angry with me. Something I forgot to consider is when you changed the hair color, the bald hair sprite was changing color too, so we had to make that sprite specifically ignore color. Problem solved. But then when you went back to normal hair, it was still ignoring color, so I thought, let's just sample the color from the back hair sprite. But wait, some hairstyles don't have a back hair sprite. Remember? Of course you remember. You remember everything. Thanks, honey. We got it figured out with some extra workarounds, extra variables, but not having a proper understanding about my code originally required me to rewrite a bunch of code like 3 times, which kind of screwed us for time. If you don't want to be screwed for time, it's good to know what you're doing. If you want to know what you're doing, you need to be properly educated. If you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to ask for a glass of milk. And if you want to be properly educated, you can go to places like today's sponsor, Brilliant.
Hey, you! Are you tired of not retaining any information from boring, droning videos?
Uh-huh.
Do you wish you could learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in math, data analysis, programming, and AI at your disposal?
Uh-huh.
Well, I have a website for you. Brilliant is a learning platform.
I'm not gonna do this voice for the whole sponsor. Brilliant is a learning platform that is designed to be uniquely effective, helping you build an understanding from the ground up. Each lesson involves hands-on problem solving that let you play with concepts, which is 6 times more effective than watching lecture videos. That's almost 7 times as effective. Brilliant helps build your critical thinking skills through problem solving instead of memorization. You can build real knowledge in just minutes a day with fun lessons that don't just build real knowledge on specific topics, but also help you become a better thinker. They have lessons in data analysis, math, but what I have to focus on is the growing number of stellar programming courses. Get familiar with Python and start building programs day one with their built-in drag-and-drop editor. Learn essential coding elements from loops to variables to nesting and conditionals, and most importantly, develop your mind to think like a programmer, which is a very important step to building a strong foundation in writing robust programs. To try everything Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/shawcat or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. I appreciate y'all. By the end of day 1, customization was working as intended, dialogue was working as intended, albeit with only 1 character.
Hi there, young people.
But there was no suspect lineup and no ending, which is a scary amount to do in the remaining day. During the last third of the day or so, Maeve finished drawing up all the victims and Tyler was working on dialogue. I gotta give serious props to these two though. Maeve was cranking out over 100 drawings to me, Tyler was working really hard on the dialogue. This project would have been impossible without either of them. And if you like Maeve's art, you can check out her Instagram, @SlightlySunnyArt. It's day 2, and Maeve had to leave midday, so she was working in the morning while I was conked out from staying up very late. Maeve spent her remaining time at my apartment finishing up victims, backgrounds, and other miscellaneous sprites we needed, while I worked on the arrest functionality. Midday approached, Tyler tagged Maeve out, and we only had about 20 out of the 50 suspects created. So he started taking all the customization pieces that we had and started putting them together like a puzzle to design more suspects based on our pre-written dialogue and criminal descriptions. They had to match the description, but also be inaccurate to the real result, which required a lot of adjusting dialogue as well. Tyler then had to go AFK after the suspect design, so I spent a good 3 to 4 hours rewriting dialogue to make sure it was all cohesive with our criminal and suspect design, making sure all the dialogue was close to the suspect design while also making sure choosing the criminal would be completely solvable, as well as implementing little puzzles into their words and making it match their personality was an insanely hard task, and I'm very happy that I don't have to do it anymore. I think we're all very happy we don't have to do it anymore. After finishing the lineup scene and letting you pick which suspect you want to arrest, I realized I had to polish up the first scene a ton for better user readability, better understanding of the gameplay. It was just confusing to somebody who maybe wouldn't have seen the game before. So I made the first victim act as a little bit of a tutorial, where each physical attribute section would unlock as you go, so you can't do anything wrong before you understand how to play. This took a couple of hours, and as midnight nearly struck, realizing that I still hadn't made the ending of the game. For context, the game jam ends ends at 10 a.m. in the morning. Maeve came back onto a Discord call and polished up all of our new suspect designs, and I chugged a bunch of caffeine and started working. We did have a couple cool ideas for it that sadly didn't make it into the end product. For example, at the end, I wanted you to be able to compare all your drawings to the results and kind of get a percentage of how close your drawing actually was. I really wanted that to be part of the game, but I realized I never set up my code to properly save all the drawings to the correct options, and it just became an impossible task to complete in the time I had remaining. We were falling asleep at our desks, so I got the ending scene to a finished point, and I went to bed at about 6 in the morning. Finally. Sweet sleep. Okay, back to work. I slept for 3 hours and got up at 9 a.m., 1 hour before the deadline, and we all three got into another Discord call to get the game exported, uploaded, and figured out a game name.
Wait, guys! We forgot music and sound effects.
So I quickly recorded myself saying random things into the mic for dialogue, downloaded some royalty-free music, and got just 1 or 2 other sound effects in there before once again uploading with about 3 minutes before the bell rang. And that's Sketchy Individuals. Since I was the host of the Jam, I didn't upload it to the Jam page itself because I didn't want my own game to influence the overall rankings. So you won't find it there, but you can find it on my profile page, which should be linked in the description. So please go play it, have fun. If you like Maeve's art, follow her Instagram at SlightlySunnyArt. If you also like other stuff, follow my Twitter at Shockwack.
And without further ado, here are some of my favorite submissions from the Jam.
Shapeshift is a puzzle platformer where the player is mismatched from the level design. So in order to complete the level, you have to get to these transformation machines to change your character's shape. If I'm remembering correctly, there's only 2 levels, but that's totally understandable because it's a 48-hour time period, and that's usually how jams end up being. But I think this concept has a ton of potential for some really creative and fun level design, and could be a really, really cool game if expanded upon. Also, the art was great, the movement felt good and punchy,
And being a master platformer like myself, I was able to complete it in record time with no mistakes.
Yin Yang Attack actually had me playing for quite a while, because at first it did take me a little bit of time to figure out how to play, but once I had it, I was having a lot of fun. You have to shoot incoming enemies before they reach your base, and you can mix and match different ammo types with different ways that you fire, but you can only have one of each at all times, which forces you to quickly strategize the best way to defeat the incoming enemies. On top of that, certain enemy types take more damage to certain ammo types, so I was often on my toes strategizing, trying to come up with the best way to optimize my defense.
Overall, this game had a really solid game loop. Gnomish Twist is a regular old platformer where the only goal is to make it to the end of the level.
Just like how we're trying to make it to Friday, am I right? Ha 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 ha!
Every level you enter, something about the world rules have changed. The ground now does damage while the spikes are safe, you have to make it to the beginning of the level instead of the end, and I especially like the level where you have to walk on the enemy's head. The puzzles weren't too demanding.
Unlike our boss, am I right? Ha 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 ha!
I definitely had a good time solving the unknown. Keyfinder had a very creative idea of mixing and matching the player's input keys to different actions. You start with only one key and have to change what it controls, whether that be walking left, right, jumping, etc. There's a nice sense of progression as you play because you can collect keys as you go, allowing multiple inputs to be used at once, which simultaneously allows new sections of the map to become accessible. It's very short, but I loved the concept. Very short like our lunch breaks, am I right? Congrats to everybody who submitted. This was a super fun project to work on, and if it was your first game ever, congratulations, you did the hardest part of game dev, which is actually finishing a game and calling it completed. Make sure to check out Sketchy Individuals as well as the other games from the Jam, and I will see you next time.
So good.